All right, so let's start the answering of CCNA version 7 ENSA skills assessment. This will serve as a practice for your upcoming practical final exam using Packet Tracer 8.01. So in this demonstration, on my left is the activity. Half of my monitor is in the Packet Tracer display to answer this skills assessment. So we're going to use Packet Tracer to build this topology. So we have 2 routers, 2 switches, and 2 computers. And then we're going to follow the address as given in this documentation. So we have R1, we'll be using gigabit interface 0/0/0 and gigabit interface 001, and we're going to use loopback address for each router. The same with the router 2. We have a loopback address here. In router 2, we're going to use loopback 0 to simulate an internet connection outside from R2. Okay, if you notice, we're all using straight through cable here to connect our interfaces. Okay, to start with, let's build a topology. So I'll be using 433.1 router, right? Sorry. And I'll be using I need a switch. And I need 2 computers. So for time being, to remove the label of all the devices, right? So let's start connecting the devices. I'm going to be using, so to connect G00 gigabit Ethernet to the gigabit Ethernet interface here also. So let's move a little bit. Sorry for that. So let's move a little bit. It's opening. Let's move a little bit, this one. And then let's also use G001 is connected to the fast Ethernet 5, and then fast Ethernet 6 connected to the fast Ethernet 0 of the computer, and then gigabit 01001 to be connected to the switch bus Ethernet 05, and then I'm going to connect 18 fast Ethernet 0 to 18 to fast Ethernet 0 of the okay. Right. So let's make a label here. This is we're going to use loopback 0, and then also have loopback 0 here. This will simulate internet, and then we have S1, and we have S2, we have PC-A, and we have PC-B. Right, so we have the label, the correct label now. So if you noticed, connecting the interface of router going to the switch still 0. That means there's no signal yet. There's no packet transmitting. And also from router 1 to router 2. So let's label also this one as router 1. And this is router 2. Alright, so this is router 2 and this is the loopback address. Alright, so let us G00. This is the G00. We have this IP address, so no need to go to put here. So we've done with the topology, and let us the use of the addressing table. This will be our guide for the configuration of the routers. All right. So we have a topology that will answer the following requirements. The assessment objectives of this skills assessment will be, the part 1 will be to initialize, reload, and configure basic device settings. Part 2 will be we're going to configure a single area OSPF version 2. And part 3, we're going to optimize single area OSPF version 2. That will be the applications of the auto cost of the reference bandwidth and then the interval timer. We're going to apply those concepts in part 3. And in part 4, we're going to configure access control list, network address translation or NAT, and perform configuration backup using the FTP server. So this is the scenario. The scenario is, in this skills assessment, you will configure the device in a small network. You must configure the routers, switch, and PCs to support IP version 4 connectivity for supported host. Your router and switch must also be managed securely, so using the encryption later on. You will configure single area OSPF version 2, NAT, and access control list. And further, you will back up your working configurations to a TFTP server. So these are the scenario. If you're going to implement this activity in a real device, these are the required resources. 2 routers, Cisco 4221, but in Packet Tracer, we use 4331. iOS release 16.9.4 in real device. Switches using 2960. We also use that in our Packet Tracer. And 2 computers, Windows with terminal emulation programs such as TerraTerm. And the console cable to configure the Cisco iOS device via the console port. The console cable also we have in Packet Tracer, so we can also demonstrate later on the console cable connecting to switch and routers to initially configure the router and switch. And then we're going to use the Ethernet cable as shown in the topology. In Packet Tracer, all the cable types are readily available. But in real device, in real laboratory setup, all cables must be present in the real laboratory. All right. So let's start with the configuration. All right, so let's start the part 1, initialization and reloading and configure basic settings. So as an initial steps, in a real device, we can use console cable to connect to our router. In Packet Tracer, we can do the same procedure. Then after connecting the console cable to the console port of the router, in Packet Tracer, you can just click the computer, but in real device, you should have a terminal emulation program installed in your computer. And then from that, you can open a terminal, because since routers doesn't have a display or monitor, you can use a computer and then establish a communication between your router and your computer via emulation software like TerraTerm. But in Packet Tracer, we're going to click the terminal, and then from these terminal configurations, we don't need to change any configuration parameters in this terminal configuration. We just need to click OK. Now in the iOS of a router. So let us apply the initial configuration. We need to make sure that there will be no configurations in the router. So by erasing the startup config. So in real device, we need to erase the startup configuration or the configurations from the NVRAM. Startup dash config. Okay, just have to confirm and then reload. Confirm. So that will be the initialization of the router iOS. This also happened, the same procedures and same initialization procedure can be done in a real device via console cable connections. And just click no. Okay. Once you see that we are now in the user prompt, router and then the greater than symbol, that means the router is ready for configuration. Okay, let us now connect the console port to our switch also, the same procedure if that is a real device. In Packet Tracer, click the computer and then connect to the terminal. I'm showing this using connecting computer to switch and routers. But in Packet Tracer, you can directly click the switch and router. So once you see the switch greater than symbol, that means you are in the user prompt. Again, we're going to erase the startup config. In the global configuration mode, erase startup dash config. Okay, and then confirm. And then since this is a switch, we should also issue the command delete ... for the database of the switch. Delete VLAN VLAN ... VLAN, delete file name VLAN ... Okay. Confirm and then reload. Okay, the flash will be reloading. The IOS of the switch will be reloading to make it kind of putting the switch into an initial configuration mode. All right, so that is basically how we can initialize and reload routers, especially if your routers are new or second-hand. We need to check if there's a old configuration from the switch or router. Okay, now let us start the configuration. I will return the console port from the switch, from the router, and then again open the terminal, click OK. Now we are ready to configure the routers. We are now in step 2, configuration tasks for router 1 and router 2. Okay, the first task will be disable the DNS lookup. We just follow the task. So enable config T. The first task is to disable the DNS lookup. So the command is no IP domain dash lookup. The second task is router name or the host name. The command is hostname R1. As soon as you hit the enter, the router name would change to R1. And the domain name will be based on the given. The domain name will be, the command is IP domain dash name. And then our domain name as given is ccna-lab.com. Enter. The next task is encrypted privilege except password. So enable secret. The password is Cisco npass. Okay, for the privilege exec mode. And the console password will be linecon. We need to define the linecon1. Linecon 0. And then password. The password given is Cisco on pass. And then log in. And then let's exit. And the next one is set the minimum length for password to 10 characters. To do that, The command is security passwords minimum length 10 characters. Okay. And then the next task is create an administrative user in the local database using the username admin and password admin pass. This is where you will use this when you are accessing remotely the router to give this SSH username and password. So username, the command is username. The username is admin. And secret, to encrypt the password, secret admin 1 pass, right? And then set the login on VTY lines to use local database. So to do this, the command to set the VTY is line VTY. I'm going to use 0 to 4 lines for router, and then pass login local. So to be able to log in locally in SSH later on, login local, and then enter. We need to use transport input SSH to accept SSH connection only. Enter, and then let us exit in this line. Then the next task is configure the message of the day using the command banner message of the day. Use the character unauthorized access is prohibited. Okay, and then we need to configure the interface G001, set the description, set the layer 3 IP address, and activate the interface. So to do this, go to the interface G0/0 /0, and then the description, let us give the description, connection to R2, since we are in R1 now. And then the IP address, the IP address is 10, based on the table, the IP address is 10.67.254.2. 10.67.254.2 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.252/30. Then enter, and then activate the interface by using no shutdown. Okay. Then the next is configure the G001. G001. The G001 has an IP address of, let us define the description first. Description connection to switch 1. Actually, this is switch 1. connection to switch 1. And then the IP address is IP address 192.168.1.1, and then 255.255.255.0, enter, then no shot. And then next is the loopback address. What is the loopback address of what is the next configure the loopback address. So the loopback address is configure the loopback address IP version 4. The loopback address of the router 1 is so interface loopback 0. So we have the loopback 0 there. And then the IP description, let's define the description. Let's say the description is network 10 also. Enter. And then IP address. The IP address of loopback is 10.52.0.1, and then the subnet mask is 255.255.255.248. Enter. After that, after the loopback address, the next task is generate an RSA crypto key. So in order to generate the crypto key, the command is crypto key generate RSA, enter, and then we use 1024 as the modulus. Okay, that's okay. And then exit, and then save the configuration, copy run start, or copy running config, startup config, enter. So we're done with R1. Let us configure the same with R2 and connect again the PCB2 to console cable, PC1, and then terminal, then click OK. So I'm now in the PCB2. Let us configure the same command but different parameters. Okay, so this time we are now in router 2. Router 2, the same requirement but different parameters. So enable COMT, configure COMT, no IP domain dash lookup, and then host name R2, IP domain dash name ccnalab.com, right? And then the enable secret Cisco N pass, and then the line con 0 password Cisco on pass, log in, then exit, and then let us set the minimum length password, security password minimum length is 10 characters, or wrong spelling, minimum length, and then the administrative user, username admin, secret admin1, pass, and then let us define the line VTY 04, login local, and then let us define transport input SSH and exit, and then service password encryption in order to encrypt the clear text passwords. And then after that, encrypt the password local. Message of the day. Okay, banner. Banner MOTD. Unauthorized access is prohibited. And then configure the interface of router 2. Interface G0/0/0, enter. IP address is, so the IP address of router 2 is 10.67.254.1, 255.255.255.252, enter. Let us find the description. Connection to R1. And then no shutdown. Alright, and then let us configure the G01. This is description, connection to S2. Description connected to S2, and then IP address. The IP address of G001 is 10.67.1.1, and then 255.255.255.0, enter, and no shut. Alright, and then the loopback address is, the loopback address of the router 2 is interface loopback also, loopback 0, IP address. The IP address of router 2 is 209.165.20 and .01, 201, 201.1, 255.255.255.224. Enter. And then let us define the cryptocurrency is exit crypto key generate RSA 1024. Okay, exit, copy, run, start to save the configuration. Okay, so we're done with the configuration of two routers based on the given requirements. And let's move on to the next part, the configuration of switch, step 3.